Have you ever worked alone late at night in a place where every wall, every corridor is filled with old memories and secrets that no one dares to mention? I used to think I was someone who wasn't easily scared until I took the night shift job at the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum. The massive aircraft carrier lying silently on the riverbank, a place that witnessed so many lives lost and stories never told. From the very first night, I realized this place was unlike any job I'd had before. Not because of the wind whistling through the iron doorways or the dim yellow light reflecting off the old aircraft carcasses, but because of the small piece of paper taped to the desk with the scrawled words, 13 night shift rules, absolutely do not break. No one explained the reason to me, just said, just follow them, don't ask. Do you believe in taboos? I didn't. But after 13 nights here, I learned one thing. There are rules that exist only to keep you alive until the next morning. And if you're curious to know what happened to me, listen very carefully. Because what I'm about to tell you might make you never dare to work alone in the dark again. I took the night shift job at the Intrepid War Museum on a cold autumn afternoon. The sky was already dim, heavy gray clouds drifting lazily above, swallowing the last rays of sunset. The massive aircraft carrier lay motionless at the dock like an ancient steel beast in deep slumber. And yet I couldn't take my eyes off it. There was something about this place that made me feel both excited and deeply uneasy. The moment I stepped onto the deck, I sensed an unnatural chill in the air, as if the breath of hundreds of lingering souls still haunted this place. My footsteps echoed on the metal floor, blending with the gentle lapping of waves against the hull. With every step, I felt as though someone was watching me from the endless shadows. The night manager, Mr. Harris, was an old man with sunken eyes and a raspy voice. He didn't smile, nor did he bother with small talk. He simply handed me a crumpled piece of paper, its surface covered in 13 rules scrawled in a hurried, almost frantic hand. He stared at me for a long moment, then whispered, "There's only one thing you need to remember. Never break these rules, no matter what happens." I took the paper, a cold shiver running down my spine. The strange rules stared back at me. Don't look into any mirror after 2 a.m. Never answer if someone calls your name from the aircraft exhibit. Always check the door to compartment 13, but never ever open it. I laughed it off, thinking it was just a prank for new hires. But the look in Mr. Harris's eyes made it impossible to dismiss. When he left, I stood alone on the vast deck surrounded by thick darkness. The wind swept by, carrying the scent of rusted iron and old machine oil. The ship's lights flickered, casting weak beams over the dust-covered aircraft, making them look like ghosts waiting to awaken. I began my patrol, each step echoing through the empty corridors. In every hallway, something felt off a door left ajar when I was sure I'd closed it, a faint clatter from the exhibit room even though no one was there, and sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of a shadow slipping past the end of the corridor, vanishing as I approached. That first night, I sat in the control room staring at the list of rules. Outside the glass, the darkness seemed to thicken, swallowing every sound. I told myself, just get through 13 nights, and everything would be fine. But deep down, I knew there were things on this ship that didn't want me to stay too long. And that's how it all began. The strange rules, the lurking shadows, and the fear that crept into every breath. I didn't know what I would have to face, but I was certain of one thing. Tonight I was not alone on the Intrepid. I still remember the feeling when I first read the list of rules that Mr. Harris gave me. The scrawled handwriting, the ink smeared as if by tears or sweat, sent a shiver down my spine. Each rule was like a warning, a reminder that this place was not for the curious or the careless. Rule number 1, do not look into any mirror after 2 a.m. I chuckled when I read this, but on my first night as I passed the restroom, I instinctively glanced into the mirror. For a split second, I saw my reflection blur, and behind me, a dark figure stood silently staring. I whipped around, but there was only cold, empty space behind me. From then on, I never dared to look into a mirror after midnight. Rule number 2. If you hear footsteps on the deck, turn off the lights and hide in the control room. On the third night, as I was checking the hallway, I suddenly heard heavy footsteps coming from the deck. The footsteps were steady, slow, as if someone was dragging their waterlogged feet. I quickly turned off the lights, my heart pounding, and rushed into the control room, holding my breath and listening. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, then faded into silence. I didn't dare come out until dawn. Rule number 3. Absolutely do not answer if someone calls your name from the aircraft exhibit. On the fifth night, I heard someone call my name, a voice echoing eerily familiar. It was my mother's voice, even though she had passed away years ago. I almost answered, but I remembered the rule just in time. The voice kept calling, growing more and more pleading, until I covered my ears trembling and huddled in the corner of the room. Rule number 4. Always check the door to compartment 13, but never ever open it. Every night I passed by compartment 13. The old iron door had strange scratches on it like claw marks. Sometimes I heard faint whispers coming from inside or a soft knocking as if someone was begging to be released. I only dared to put my hand on the doorknob, check that it was locked, and then quickly leave, not daring to linger. The remaining rules were just as strange. Do not leave the lights on in the east hallway after 3 a.m. Do not pick up anything that falls on the deck floor. If you see a soldier in an old uniform standing at the end of the hallway, turn away and never look back. Each rule was a riddle, a warning about things that couldn't be explained. I began to realize that these rules weren't meant to scare me, but to protect me from the things lurking in the shadows. And the more I obeyed, the more clearly I felt the presence of strange things, invisible eyes always watching my every step. Some nights I wondered if I broke one of these rules, what would happen. But then whenever I thought of the silent shadows, the eerie voices, and the door to compartment 13, I told myself, it's best never to find out. On my first night on the Intrepid, I walked through the long, endless hallways, the dim yellow lights casting shadows on the cold iron walls. The silence was so complete that I could hear my own heartbeat, each soft breath echoing in the darkness. I told myself it was all just my imagination, but the feeling of unease grew with every step. Around 1 a.m., as I was checking the aircraft exhibit, I heard a clattering sound coming from the far end of the room. I stopped listening, but there was only the sound of wind whistling through the cracks in the door. I moved closer, my flashlight beam shaking in my hand. Suddenly, a model airplane fell to the floor, making a deafening noise. I jumped, my heart racing, but as I bent down to pick it up, I remembered the rule: do not pick up anything that falls on the deck floor. I quickly backed away, leaving the airplane lying there, feeling like someone was watching me from the shadows. On the second night, I patrolled past compartment 13. The old iron door was still closed, but this time I heard faint whispers coming from inside. The sound was indistinct, like someone was begging for help or sobbing quietly. I stood frozen, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob, but remembering the rule, I only checked the lock and hurried away. As I turned my back, I felt like some eyes were following me from the dark crack in the door. On the third night, I sat in the control room, staring at the security camera monitors. At exactly 2 a.m., the lights in the east hallway suddenly flickered and went out. I was about to get up to check when I heard heavy footsteps coming from the deck. The footsteps were slow dragging, getting closer and closer. I quickly turned off all the lights, holding my breath and hiding behind the door. The footsteps stopped right outside the control room, then fell silent. I didn't dare move, only dared to breathe lightly, feeling like someone was standing right outside waiting. In the following nights, I began to notice recurring anomalies. Sometimes I saw a shadow slip past the end of the hallway, disappearing as I approached. At times, I heard my name echoing in the night, a voice that was eerily familiar. Each time I could only clutch the list of rules, telling myself to follow each one, even as the fear grew stronger in my heart. I began to understand that the rules were not just warnings, but a fragile thread keeping me safe in a world of the unexplainable. And I also realized that on the Intrepid, I was never truly alone. There are nights on the Intrepid that have etched themselves into my memory like rust-eaten blades. Even now, recalling them, my heart aches, and my throat runs dry with questions that have never been answered. Night 5. The mirror after 2 a.m. I closed the restroom door, splashing water on my face, hoping to shake off the drowsiness. When I looked up, I froze. It wasn't me in the mirror, but a naval airman, his uniform soaked in blood. He stared, his lips moving. Can you hear us calling for help?" I stammered, my breath catching in my throat. "No, this can't be real. I'm dreaming." But the image didn't fade. Blood seeped from his collar, dripping into the sink. I backed away until my back hit the wall, my hands trembling. Thought, if this is a hallucination, why is the cold so biting? I closed my eyes, spun around, and slammed the door shut, running. Behind me, a whisper followed. Don't abandon us. Night 7. The voice in the aircraft exhibit. The rows of aircraft stood silent dust thick on their metal wings. Suddenly a familiar voice echoed, my child, come to me." I froze. It was my mother's voice, the one who had passed away 3 years ago. I replied softly, almost unconsciously, "Mom." Instantly the air around me turned icy. Rule number 3 rang in my head like an alarm bell. Thought, don't answer. Back away now. I bit my lip until it bled, covering my ears. But the voice grew more pleading. "Are you running away from your mother? Don't be afraid, it's just me." I turned and fled to the deck, my heart pounding, the cold wind whipping my face raw. The voice turned into a scream, then cut off as if someone had strangled it. Night 9, the wet footprints. The night was dry, yet on the deck, a trail of wet footprints led straight to the door of compartment 13. I placed my finger on the edge of the print. It was as cold as ice. "Is anyone out there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No response, only the sound of dripping water. Thought, if I follow the footprints, will I break the rule? A figure flickered at the end of the deck. I switched on my flashlight, but the beam hit empty space. When I lowered the light, I almost heard a gasp right next to my ear. "Open the door." I backed away, my heart pounding like it wanted to jump out of my chest. Night 11, the darkness. Before the control room door, 12:47 a.m. The camera screen suddenly went static, then went completely black. All the lights went out, a screech of electricity echoing. Outside, heavy, dragging footsteps approached. I turned off my watch, held my breath, my back pressed against the cold wall. Knock, knock, knock. 3 rhythmic knocks. I almost burst into tears. Who is it? No answer. Only a soft scratching at the edge of the steel door. Thought, what if they get in? I clutched the list of rules. Suddenly the scratching stopped. Then the footsteps faded away. The electricity flickered back on. On the camera screens, the hallway was empty except for a dark, wet trail leading to my door. Night 12. The warning letter. When I was the only one left on duty, an old yellow envelope lay neatly on the table. I was sure the table was empty when I left the room 3 minutes earlier. I opened it. The handwriting was shaky. "Tomorrow night, they will try to trick you into opening compartment 13. Don't trust any voice." At the edge of the letter were faint, dark red stains. I touched them, dried blood. Just then, the fluorescent lights flickered. A cold breath brushed the back of my neck. A deep, raspy voice whispered in my ear, "Don't listen to him. Open the door. We're dying." I spun around, but behind me was only empty darkness. Thought, I'm standing between two pleas, one from the living or from something else. I clutched the letter, my heart pounding like a drum, and suddenly understood tomorrow night would be the final gamble between survival and madness. Each of those moments is etched deep within me like carvings on the rusted steel of the ship. I began to count down every hour until dawn, praying that the rules would protect me for one more night, just one more night. Part 5, the 13th night, the final night. 11:45 p.m. The shift begins. I stepped onto the deck, the wind biting cold. The ship was deathly silent. In my pocket, I clutched 2 things: the crumpled list of rules and the blood-stained warning letter. Thought, just one more night. Survive, then get the hell out of here. Get the hell out. 12:17 a.m., the first blackout. All the lights went out at once, leaving behind a suffocating darkness. The rusty PA system screeched then. Silence. "Are you still there?" A raspy male voice crackled through the speakers. It wasn't Mr. Harris. Who is this?" I swallowed hard. "The last night guard like you. But you have to hurry, they are coming." The speaker cut off. A chill ran down my spine. 12:46 a.m. Footsteps on the deck. A dragging, heavy sound repeating 1, 2, 3, then stopping right outside the control room door. I hit the switch, useless. A shadow pressed its face against the frosted glass, revealing hollow, empty eye sockets. Thought, turn off the lights and hide the second rule. I held my breath, heart pounding like a drum. The shadow exhaled, fogging up the glass, then vanished. 1:32 a.m. The crying in the east hallway. I patrolled toward the hallway where the rules forbade turning on the lights after 3 a.m. It was still early, so the lights flickered and buzzed. A little girl sobbed, "Mister, I'm lost. Please open the door for me." The sound echoed from compartment 13. The child's trembling voice squeezed my heart. Thought, don't trust any voice. But what if it's real? I backed away. The lights flickered out, leaving only the crying closer and closer, until it was right by my ear. Then silence. 2 narrowed a.m., the mirror moment. As the clock struck 2 narrow, every glass surface on the ship fogged over. On the misted surface, scrawled letters appeared. Open door 13. At 3:13, I wiped it away, and the words vanished, revealing my reflection. But my eyes were bleeding. I dropped the towel, nearly screaming. Thought they're trying to twist the rules to prey on my fear. 2:47 a.m., the second letter. Back in the control room, a new envelope lay on the desk, soaked through. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. Me standing in front of compartment 13, hand on the latch, a blood-soaked sailor looming behind me. "You took this picture in the future," someone whispered behind me. I spun around, nothing. The Polaroid slipped from my hand, wet and sticky. 3:00 a.m., the death knell. The fire alarm blared throughout the ship. Emergency red lights flashed wildly. Thick smoke billowed from compartment 13. Thought, this isn't a fire, it's a trap. Don't open it. I yanked the alarm. Nothing happened. The siren wailed, smoke burning my lungs. Through the haze, the sailor's figure appeared, pointing at the lock on door 13. "Save us. Just a crack is all we need," he rasped. I shook my head, pulled the pin on the fire extinguisher, and sprayed it at the shadow. It passed right through, and he dissolved like mist. 3:13 a.m., the defining moment. Compartment 13 shook violently. The steel door was pounded so hard the bolts sparked. Over the speakers, a chorus of voices overlapped: my mother, Mr. Harris, the little girl, the sailor, all merging into a ghastly chant. Moment, I covered my ears and sobbed. The clock's hand hit exactly 3:13. Suddenly, all sound stopped. The door to compartment 13 fell silent. Thought I have to check the lock one last time. I crept forward, trembling, and checked with the key. The lock was still engaged, but the handle was ice cold and turned from the inside by 1 notch. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the keys. Click. The bolt slid itself back into place. Then silence. 4:06 a.m., the final message. As the smoke cleared, a message appeared on the steel door of compartment 13, written in a thick, dark liquid. "Thank you for keeping your promise." The red substance slowly dripped to the floor, pooling into the shape of the number 13. 5:30 a.m. Dawn. The first sunlight filtered through the porthole, shining directly on the blood-stained door, now just a dry, rusty streak, as if nothing had ever happened. The fire alarm had stopped at some point, the power was back, and all the cameras showed normal. Mr. Harris appeared, his eyes more sunken than ever. "You're alive. Good. Do you know what happened last night?" My voice was hoarse. "If you'd opened compartment 13, you wouldn't be asking me that." He handed me a resignation form already signed. "Go. Don't come back." I walked down the gangway, never looking back. In the morning breeze, the Intrepid creaked, almost as if it was laughing softly. Thought I made it out. But is something still watching me? Near the shore, I glanced at the water. Reflected faintly from the deck, a sailor waving goodbye, then dissolving into the morning waves. I ran, shoving the list of rules deep into my pocket, a relic to remind me that some doors should never be opened, and some rules should never be forgotten. Part 6. The Ending and Aftermath. First person with dialogue, inner thoughts, and an unexpected twist. 7:15 a.m. In the taxi, leaving the harbor. I huddled in the back seat, the smell of sea salt still clinging to my jacket. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "You all right, kid? You look like you just saw a ghost." I forced a weak smile, my voice hoarse. "Just a rough night shift, that's all. Thought I have to forget. Soon all of this will fade." 9:00 a.m., apartment 12th floor. I rushed into the bathroom, splashed water on my face. When I looked up, my reflection was just me, dark circles under my eyes, not a drop of color in my cheeks. Relieved, I tossed my uniform in the trash, crumpled the list of rules, and shoved it deep into a locked drawer. Thought it's over. A new chapter begins. 2:34 p.m. The strange nap. I dozed off on the sofa for barely 10 minutes, but the dream felt endless. Compartment 13 wide open. Me in a sailor's uniform standing at attention, a grin splitting my face. From the darkness, hundreds of shadowy hands reached out, dragging me down into the ship's hold. I jolted awake, sweat soaking my shirt, my hand clutching the list of rules. It was lying on my chest, perfectly smooth, not a wrinkle. "How did you come back?" I whispered, trembling. 5:18 p.m. Breaking news. The TV turned on by itself, the screen flickering before showing the local news logo. The anchor looked unsettled. Breaking news. The Intrepid War Museum has been temporarily closed after a major electrical incident. Police report no one remains on board, but security cameras captured a figure in a night guard's uniform. A blurry image flashed on screen. A person with their back turned, me walking straight into compartment 13. Thought impossible. 5:18. I'm right here. My phone buzzed, an unknown number, harbor area code. I answered, and on the other end, the sound of metal clanging and a chilling whisper. Night 1 is starting again. I dropped the phone, my heart nearly bursting. 7:00 p.m. Wet footprints in the hallway. I heard a neighbor shout pipes leaking, but when I opened my door, the hallway was dry except for a trail of wet footprints leading from the elevator to my door. They stopped at my doormat, pressed deep in the shape of the number 13. Thought they're looking for me, even across the city. 11:13 p.m. The 14th rule. I decided to burn the list of rules. The flames curled the paper ash, drifting down. But as the cinders hit the floor, glowing red letters appeared perfectly clear. Rule 14. If you leave the ship, you must remain silent forever. Telling the story, opening the door. I swallowed hard, staring at my laptop screen, the draft titled 13 Night Shifts at Intrepid open. The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. I escaped. Suddenly, my computer speakers crackled, the sound of metal knocking, echoing like in the ship's hold. Knock! 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 Are you telling we can hear you? The room lights flickered on and off. The mirror on the wall fogged up, revealing the words, "Welcome back." A foul, cold wind brushed the back of my neck. I turned, my room was empty, but on the floor, the lock from compartment 13 lay waiting, the key already in it. Thought I'm being pulled back through this very story. 11:59 p.m. The choice. My hands shook as I typed the final lines, hoping the screen would transmit them. If you're reading this, don't retell it. Don't share, don't mention that number, because every whisper about the Intrepid is a new crack in the door. The clock struck 12. As the last chime faded, the power went out. In the darkness, a familiar chorus of voices rose softly right behind me. Open it. I don't know where or when you're reading this record, but if right now you hear 3 knocks on your wall or see mist on your mirror spelling out the number 13, stop. Don't look for me. And most importantly, don't tell this story to anyone else, because that door is just waiting for a curious tongue to brush against it. And when it opens, no one, not me, not you, can ever predict who or what will step out from that darkness. If you found this story valuable and interesting, please hit the like button. This really helps us bring you more good and valuable content. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think, what questions you have, or what topics you would like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next stories. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories.